The massive chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Ambassador Carol Wright stepped onto the speaking platform. She was the first human to ever address the assembled representatives of the 127 spacefaring civilizations. The curved walls rose hundreds of feet above her, with floating platforms holding delegates from across the Milky Way. Some breathed methane, others were made of living crystal, but all watched the small, pink-skinned human with curious eyes. Carol smoothed her blue diplomatic uniform and cleared her throat. After months of preparation, this moment would determine humanity's place among the stars. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, I bring greetings from Earth," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "We are honored to join this ancient community of worlds." The Grand Speaker, a tall being with blue skin and 6 arms named Zorlax, nodded politely. "Ambassador Wright, we welcome Earth to our peaceful union. For over 12,000 years we have maintained harmony across known space. We look forward to learning about your species." The cultural exchange portion of the ceremony began. Carol presented Earth's art, music, and literature through a series of holographic displays. The council members watched with interest, occasionally murmuring to each other in their native tongues while translation devices hummed quietly. "And now," Zorlax said, "please share your species' historical development." This was the moment Carol had worried about. Following protocol, she projected images of human history, starting with early civilization. When she reached the sections on warfare, the chamber grew noticeably tense. "Your species has engaged in how many conflicts?" asked a gaseous being from the Andromeda delegation. "Recorded human history contains thousands of wars," Carol explained. "The 2 largest global conflicts in the 20th century resulted in over 100 million deaths." A wave of shocked whispers spread through the chamber. "I assure you," Carol added quickly, "Earth is now largely peaceful. We haven't had a global war in over a century." The Draconian representative, a reptilian being, with scales that shifted colors with emotion, turned dark purple. "You speak of such destruction so casually. Has your species no regard for life?" Carol felt her face flush. "On the contrary, our history of conflict has taught us to value peace. Humans today fear war and actively work to prevent it." "Interesting," said Zorlax, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "Yet you maintain military forces?" "Yes," Carol admitted. "For defense only. Earth's nations maintain armed forces, but we've drastically reduced their size since our more troubled times." An Arcturian delegate with metallic skin stood up. "I find these humans contradictory. They claim to fear war, yet prepare for it constantly. I propose they be classified as a developing non-aggressive species with limited technology access until we better understand their true nature." Carol wanted to object but knew this classification was better than being deemed hostile. Besides, the Arcturian wasn't entirely wrong. Humans did have a complicated relationship with conflict. "I support this classification," said a floating orb of light representing the Folix Collective. "The humans appear sincere in their desire for peace, yet their history suggests caution is warranted." Zorlax turned all 4 eyes to Carol. "Would you care to respond, Ambassador Wright?" Carol took a deep breath. "While I understand your concerns, I hope the Council will judge us by our current actions rather than our past. Humans have learned from our history. We maintain defenses precisely because we understand the horror of war and wish never to experience it again." "An interesting perspective," Zorlax said, "but puzzling. Species who truly understand the horror of war typically eliminate their weapons entirely, as all Council members have done. We maintain only ceremonial peacekeeping forces." "With respect," Carol said carefully, "humanity has found that being unprepared for conflict can sometimes invite it." This statement caused another ripple of murmurs through the chamber. The Arcturian delegate's skin flashed bright silver in apparent alarm. "A concerning philosophy," the Arcturian said. "One that suggests humans expect violence rather than harmony." Carol struggled to explain. "We hope for the best but prepare for, I believe, we have seen enough." Zorlax interrupted gently. The council will deliberate. For 2 hours, Carol waited in an antechamber while the council discussed Earth's status. She paced nervously, wondering if she had doomed humanity's standing before it even began. When she was finally called back, Zorlax announced the decision. The Galactic Council welcomes Earth as a Category 3 civilization, with provisional membership and restricted access to certain technologies. Carol knew this was a polite demotion. Most new species entered at Category 2. Category 3 was usually reserved for species with concerning cultural practices or unstable governments. We find humans to be an interesting paradox, Zorlax continued. You claim to fear war yet prepare for it. You speak of peace, yet maintain weapons. We believe you are sincere in your wishes for harmony, but your species requires further development. Carol accepted the judgment with a diplomatic smile, though disappointment twisted in her stomach. Earth thanks the Council for its wisdom and patience. We look forward to proving ourselves worthy of your trust. As the ceremony concluded, Carol noticed a figure watching from the shadows of the highest tier. Unlike the other delegates who sat in the open, this being remained partially hidden. Its 4 eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, and its scaled skin was deep red. According to her briefing materials, this must be a Valkyrie, a rare and ancient species that rarely participated in council matters. The Valkyrie made a subtle gesture that Carol couldn't interpret, then vanished before she could acknowledge it. Later, at the reception, Carol sipped a blue liquid that tasted like mint and chocolate, while various delegates approached to welcome Earth to the galactic community. Most were polite but distant, clearly uncertain about humans. They don't understand, said a quiet voice behind her. Carol turned to find a small, frog-like being with large green eyes. Ambassador Greel of Proxima Centauri, the being said. My species was the first to contact Earth, if you recall. Of course, Carol smiled. We're grateful for that peaceful first contact. Greel blinked slowly. The Council has existed for so long without major conflict that they've forgotten what it means to face existential threats. They view your preparations as primitive thinking. And what do you think? Carol asked. I think the galaxy is larger and more dangerous than the Council remembers, Greel whispered. And I think humanity's contradictions might someday prove valuable. Before Carol could ask what Greel meant, the Arcturian delegate approached, ending their conversation. As the reception continued, Carol couldn't help feeling that Earth's introduction to galactic society had gone poorly. The Council saw humans as backward, possibly dangerous, definitely confusing. What they didn't understand was that humans feared war precisely because they knew what they were capable of. Carol hoped the Council would never need to learn why. 6 months passed since Earth joined the galactic community. The human colony on Proxima Centauri had become a busy trade hub, with ships from a dozen alien species visiting daily. The tiny outpost that once housed only scientists now boasted restaurants, trading posts, and cultural centers. Frank Collins stared at the sensor screen in the Proxima Defense Station. As night shift supervisor, he expected another quiet 8 hours of watching empty space. The colony only maintained the I station because Earth insisted on it. The Council had assured them it was unnecessary. A red dot appeared at the edge of the screen. Frank sat up straight and adjusted the sensors. The dot multiplied into 3, then 7, then 20. Computer, identify approaching vessels. Frank said, his mouth suddenly dry. Unknown configuration. Not matching any Galactic Council registry. Frank hit the communication button. Captain Martinez, this is Defense Station. We have multiple unknown vessels approaching. Not responding to hails. Joe Martinez had been enjoying his first real sleep in days when the call came. As captain of the Earth Defense Force vessel Intrepid, the only human military ship allowed in the Proxima system, he took his responsibilities seriously. On my way, he said, already pulling on his uniform. Sound yellow alert. Inform Ambassador Wright. 20 minutes later, Martinez stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, watching the approaching ships on the main screen. Their design was unlike anything in the Council database. Angular, covered in what appeared to be weapon mounts and moving in tight formation. Sir, said Lieutenant Kelly Peters from the communications station, we're receiving a distress call from the Thalasian colony in the Beta system. They report they're under attack by unknown forces. Martinez frowned. Beta system is 2 light years. From here. Same attackers? The description matches, sir, and there's more. Similar reports coming in from 3 other colonies in neighboring systems. The communications screen flashed, and Ambassador Carol Wright's face appeared. She looked like she hadn't slept all night. Captain Martinez, the Council is in emergency session. These attackers have hit 7 systems simultaneously. The Council has identified them as Quilaxians, a pirate species thought to be extinct for 3,000 years. What are the Council's orders? Martinez asked. Carol's expression hardened. They're debating. The Council hasn't faced a military threat in millennia. Their peacekeeping forces are scattered and minimal. Debating? While colonies are under attack? Martinez couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. I'm pushing for action, but most species here have no concept of rapid military response. They're forming committees to study the situation. Frustration colored Carol's voice. A new alarm sounded on the bridge. Captain, the unknown vessels have increased speed. They'll reach Proxima Colony in 20 minutes, reported the sensor. Officer Martinez made a decision. Ambassador, please inform the Council that the Intrepid will defend Proxima Colony as per our defense agreement. We request backup if available. I'll tell them, but don't expect help soon. Martinez. Carol hesitated. The Council is watching how we respond. They still don't trust humans. Understood. Intrepid out. Martinez turned to his crew. Battle stations. Evacuation alert for the civilian section of the colony. The bridge transformed as officers took their combat positions. Martinez had drilled them relentlessly despite complaints that such preparation was unnecessary in the peaceful galactic community. Sir, Peters called out. We're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. The main screen showed a being with gray skin, black eyes, and a mouthful of sharp teeth. Attention, Proxima Colony. We are the Quilaxian Dominion. Your defenses are inadequate. Surrender all resources and technology. Resistance will result in orbital bombardment. Martinez stepped forward. This is Captain Joe Martinez of the Earth. Defense Force vessel Intrepid. Proxima Colony is under human protection. Withdraw immediately. The Quilaxian commander made a sound like grinding metal, possibly laughter. A single ship? The Council has grown even weaker than we thought. Prepare to be destroyed. The transmission ended. Martinez turned to his weapons officer. Target lead vessels only. Warning shots across their bow. Sir? The officer looked confused. They've already threatened the colony. We follow protocol, Lieutenant. Warning shots first. The Intrepid fired energy pulses that deliberately missed the approaching fleet. The response was immediate. A barrage of weapons fire from multiple Quilaxian ships. Evasive maneuvers, Martinez ordered as the ship rocked from a glancing hit. Shields at maximum. Return fire. Target weapon systems only. The Intrepid moved with surprising speed for its size, dodging most of the incoming fire while firing precision shots at the Quilaxian vessels. On the Council observation channel, representatives watched in stunned silence as the human ship executed complex maneuvers that their own peacekeeping vessels had never needed to perform. Colony evacuation is only 30% complete, Peters reported. The civilian shelters won't be ready for another 15 minutes. Martinez studied the tactical display. The Quilaxian ships were spreading out, preparing to bypass the Intrepid and attack the colony directly. We need to buy time, he said. Helm, position us between the enemy and the colony. We'll create a defensive screen. Sir, that puts us in the path of all 20 enemy vessels, the helmsman pointed out. I'm aware, Lieutenant. Execute the order. The Intrepid moved to block the path to the colony, making itself a target for the entire Quilaxian fleet. On the Council observation channel, the Arcturian representative made a sound of disbelief. The human vessel is sacrificing itself to protect the colony. This is unexpected. Zorlax, the Grand Speaker, watched the tactical display with all four eyes wide. They could retreat. Their ship is faster, yet they stay. The Valkyrie observer, silent until now, spoke in a low rumble. Watch carefully. You are seeing something the Council has forgotten. The Intrepid took hit after hit, shields weakening but guns still firing with precision. When 3 Quilaxian ships broke formation to circle around, Martinez made another decision. Engineering. Reroute all power from aft shields to forward weapons. Target those flanking vessels with everything we have. Captain, that leaves our rear undefended, the tactical officer warned. The colony has no defenses at all, Lieutenant. Fire. The Intrepid's weapons blazed, disabling 2 of the flanking Quilaxian ships. The third got through, heading directly for the colony's main habitat dome. Pursuit course, Martinez ordered. Emergency power to engines. The Intrepid, already damaged, surged forward and positioned itself directly in the path of the Quilaxian ship's weapons. The enemy fire struck the unshielded section of the human vessel, causing explosions across multiple decks. In the council chamber, Carol watched in horror as damage reports flowed in from the Intrepid. The Quilaxian ship fired, again, this time at the colony, but the beam struck the human vessel instead. They deliberately took the hit, the Draconian representative said, scales shifting to a pale blue of shock. The Intrepid, systems failing and hull breached in multiple sections, fired one last volley. The Quilaxian ship attacking the colony exploded in a flash of light. The remaining Quilaxian vessels, seeing the determination of the human defense, regrouped and retreated from the system. Colony evacuation complete. Civilian casualties 0. Peters reported, her voice tight with pain from a wound on her forehead. Multiple casualties aboard Intrepid, hull integrity failing on decks 3 through 7. Martinez, blood running from a cut on his face, nodded. Send our battle records to Earth Command and to Ambassador Wright at the Council. They need to understand what we're facing. In the Council chamber, the mood had shifted dramatically. Representatives watched in silence as the damaged human ship limped back to the colony for repairs. I believe, Zorlak said slowly, we may have misjudged our human friends. 3 weeks after the attack on Proxima Colony, the massive council chamber looked very different. Emergency lighting cast a blue glow over worried faces. The once orderly sessions had given way to constant activity as reports of Quilaxian attacks arrived hourly. In the center of the chamber, Admiral Susan Kelly stood before the council leadership. At 57, with silver hair and a face lined from years of command, she carried herself with quiet confidence. She was the first military leader ever permitted to address the full council. The Quilaxian forces have attacked 23 systems, Susan said, pointing to a holographic map of council space. Their strategy suggests they've been observing us for years. They're targeting communication hubs, supply depots, and lightly defended colonies. Zorlax, the Grand Speaker, looked troubled. Our peacekeeping fleet reports they are outmatched. The Quilaxians use weapons we haven't seen in thousands of years. Because you haven't needed them, Susan said. The Council's long peace is admirable, but it has left you vulnerable. The Arcturian representative's metallic skin flashed with anger. And I suppose humans have a solution? More weapons? More warships? The very things we've worked millennia to eliminate? Susan met his gaze steadily. What we have is experience, and we're offering to share it. Ambassador Carol Wright stepped forward. The Earth Alliance has formally voted to offer full military assistance to the Council. Admiral Kelly has brought a strategic response plan for your consideration. Susan activated a new hologram showing ship designs and deployment patterns. We propose converting civilian transport vessels into defensive platforms. Earth has sent construction teams and defense specialists to help. We've also activated our reserve fleet. A murmur ran through the council. The Folux representative glowed brightly in alarm. You maintained a hidden fleet despite treaty limitations? Not hidden, Carol corrected. Mothballed, placed in inactive status but preserved. It's standard human procedure. Preparing for a war that wasn't coming, the Arcturian said bitterly. Until it did come, Susan replied quietly. Zorlak studied. The holographic plans. How quickly can these measures be implemented? We've already begun, Susan said. Earth shipyards are working at full capacity. The first converted vessels will be ready in days, not weeks. Without council approval, the draconian representative's scales turned red with shock. Carol stepped in diplomatically. Earth understood the emergency nature of the situation. We felt it better to ask forgiveness than permission when lives are at stake. The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Some representatives protested the human presumption, while others expressed gratitude for the rapid response. Zorlax called for order several times before the chamber quieted. The council will need to discuss this development, Zorlax said. However, given the crisis, I propose we accept human assistance provisionally while deliberations continue. The motion passed, though not unanimously. As the session ended, the Valkyrie observer approached Susan and Carol in the antechamber. Up close, his reptilian features were more pronounced, with scales that shifted between deep red and purple. Admiral Kelly, the Valkyrie said in a low, rumbling voice. I am Vexcar, Senior Observer. Your species continues to surprise the Council. Susan nodded respectfully. We're just doing what needs to be done. Indeed. Vexicar's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. The Council has forgotten what need truly means. They have lived so long, in peace, that they've lost the ability to recognize existential threats. You seem to understand better than most, Carol observed. Vexicar made a gesture with his clawed hand. The Valkyrie remember. We watch, and we remember. Before they could ask what he meant, Vexicar departed, leaving Susan and Carol exchanging puzzled looks. 2 days later, on the Centauri military training grounds, retired Marine officer Sam Mitchell watched with growing frustration as representatives from 12 Council species attempted basic combat maneuvers. Despite his patient instruction, they struggled with concepts humans learned in basic training. No, Sam said, running a hand through his gray hair. You don't bunch together. That makes you an easy target. Spread out, use cover, maintain sightlines with your team. The Thalasian delegate, a tall being with 4 arms and iridescent skin, lowered her practice weapon. This goes against all our cultural instincts. Thalasians stay together for safety. I understand, Sam said more gently. But in combat, different rules apply. Together, you're 1 target. Apart, you're 4 targets, which means the enemy has to divide their attention. A council observer recording the training session shook his head. The humans think so differently. Every action is viewed through the lens of conflict. Not conflict, Sam corrected. Survival. There's a difference. By the end of the week, Susan had established joint command centers in 3 key systems. Human military advisors worked alongside council representatives, though tensions remained high. On the central planning station, Susan reviewed defensive positions with the council's newly appointed crisis committee. The converted freighters will patrol these sectors, she explained, highlighting routes on the star map. They're not warships, but they can detect Quilaxian approach and alert defensive forces. And those forces will be primarily human? Asked the draconian representative. For now, Susan acknowledged. Your peacekeeping ships are being retrofitted with defensive systems, but that takes time. Time we may not have, Carol added. Intelligence suggests the Quilaxians are massing for a major assault. The Arcturian representative, who had opposed human involvement from the beginning, studied the deployment patterns. These formations, they're designed for attack, not just defense. Susan didn't deny it. The best defense often requires offensive capability. The Quilaxians have shown they only respect strength. So humans claim, the Arcturian said. Yet it seems convenient that a war erupts just as humans join the Council, allowing you to expand your military presence across our systems. The accusation hung in the air. Carol began to protest, but Susan raised a hand to stop her. If we wanted to conquer the Council, we wouldn't need this elaborate ruse, Susan said calmly. Your defenses were already minimal. We could have simply attacked. Admiral! Carol was shocked at her bluntness. It's the truth, Susan continued. But instead, Humans are sacrificing their ships and people to protect Council worlds. Ask yourself why. Before the Arcturian could respond, alarms sounded throughout the station. A communication officer rushed in. Quilaxian fleet detected entering the Rigel system. Estimated 40 vessels heavily armed. Susan immediately activated the command console. All defense units to alert status. Deploy rapid response teams to Rigel. Evacuation protocols for civilian centers. The Council representatives watched in amazement as humans throughout the command center moved with practiced efficiency, issuing orders and coordinating responses without panic or confusion. You've prepared for this exact scenario, the Draconian realized. We prepare for all scenarios, Susan said, her attention on the tactical display. That's why we're terrified of war, because we never stop thinking about it. As the crisis unfolded, the Council members began to understand something fundamental about their human allies. Humans weren't peaceful because they didn't understand, or they were cautious because they understood it too well. 1 month into the conflict with the Quilaxians, a delegation of Council representatives arrived on Earth. It was the first official visit by Council members to the human homeworld. Ambassador Carol Wright had arranged the visit to help them understand human culture better. Their shuttle descended through white clouds to reveal the sprawling city of Washington, D.C. below. Zorlax, the Grand Speaker, pressed close to the viewport, all 4 eyes wide with interest. Beside him, representatives from 7 other Council species watched with varying degrees of curiosity and caution. Your world has much water, observed the Folix delegate, a floating sphere of light that hovered near the ceiling. 70% of our surface, Carol confirmed. It shaped our evolution and our civilizations. The shuttle landed at a diplomatic complex near the city center. As the delegates disembarked, they noticed the increased security presence. Human guards stood at attention, their uniforms crisp and their expressions serious. Is such protection necessary? Asked the Draconian representative. We were told Earth was peaceful. It is, relatively speaking, Carol replied, but old habits die hard. Security is part of our culture. Dr. Olivia Grant met them inside the building. As Earth's leading xenoanthropologist, she would guide the delegates through their cultural tour. Welcome to Earth, Olivia smiled warmly. We've prepared a series of visits to help you understand humanity better. The first stop surprised the delegates. Instead of a technological showcase or government building, they were taken to the National War Memorial. Sprawling green lawns, surrounded monuments of stone and metal. Humans walked quietly among the memorials, some placing flowers at the base of walls filled with names. This is a celebration of war? The Arcturian delegate asked, metallic skin reflecting the sunlight. No, Olivia said solemnly. It's a remembrance of those who died in conflicts. Almost every human city has such places. The delegates moved through the memorial in silence. They passed walls with thousands of names, statues of soldiers, and eternal flames kept burning day and night. So many dead, whispered Zorlax. And you preserve their memory this way? We preserve the memory of their sacrifice, Olivia explained. And in doing so, we remind ourselves of the cost of conflict. Their next stop was a museum filled with artifacts from Earth's wars. Uniforms, weapons, photographs, and letters from soldiers to their families. The exhibit spanned centuries, from ancient conflicts with swords and shields to more recent wars with advanced technology. The Thalasian delegate, normally talkative, had grown quiet. Your species has fought itself so many times, yet you survived. We did more than survive, Olivia said. We learned. Each conflict taught us something about ourselves, both the good and the bad. After the museum, they visited a military academy, where young humans trained. The delegates watched as cadets ran obstacle courses and practiced formation drills. Even now, you prepare your young for war, the Arcturian noted disapprovingly. A human instructor, hearing this, stepped forward. We prepare them for service, he corrected. Defense is only part of their training. They also learn rescue operations, disaster relief, and peacekeeping. That evening, the delegates attended a formal dinner with Earth government representatives. The conversation inevitably turned to the ongoing Quilaxian conflict. Your military response has been impressive, Zorlax admitted. Without Earth's intervention, many more Council worlds would have fallen. Yet we don't understand, said the Draconian, scales shifting to a thoughtful blue color. If humans truly fear war, why are you so prepared for it? Why study it? Why remember it with such detail? Dr. Grant, seated at the main table, answered, Precisely because we fear it. We study what we fear in order to prevent it. That seems contradictory. The Folux representative glowed brighter, indicating confusion. Consider this, Olivia explained. You don't fear fire because you've never seen it. You fear it because you know what it can do. Humans don't glorify, or we're terrified of it. That's why we're so good at it. The room fell silent as the delegates considered her words. Carol added, Our history is filled with conflict, yes, but it's also filled with tremendous acts of courage, sacrifice, and kindness during those conflicts. That's the paradox of humanity. Later that night, after the formal events had ended, Vexkar, the Valkyrie observer, requested a private meeting with Carol. They met in a small garden behind the diplomatic complex. The night air was cool and insects chirped in the darkness. Your people are more complex than the Council initially believed, Vexkar said, his 4 eyes reflecting the moonlight. I've been trying to explain that since first contact, Carol replied with a small smile. Vexkar moved closer, lowering his voice. The Valkyrie understand better than most. We too once had a violent past. Carol looked at him with surprise. I thought all Council species had evolved beyond conflict. Most have, Vexkar acknowledged. But the Valkyrie took a different path. We remember what it means to fight, to defend. That is why we observe rather than participate in Council politics. You've been watching us specifically, Carol realized, since first contact. Vexkar nodded, scales shifting to a deep purple. We recognized something familiar in humans. The Council sees your military preparedness as primitive. We see it as necessary. Necessary for what? The galaxy is vast, Ambassador Wright. The Council's peace has lasted for millennia, but only within its borders. Beyond lies much that is unknown and dangerous. Before Carol could ask more questions, Vexkar straightened suddenly. We are being watched, he whispered. This conversation never happened. He departed swiftly, leaving Carol alone with her thoughts. The next morning, the delegation prepared to return to the Council homeworld. As they boarded their shuttle, Zorlax approached Carol. We have accessed your historical records, he said. The scope of human conflicts is disturbing, but also instructive. How so? Carol asked. Your Admiral Kelly was correct. We had forgotten what existential threats look like. The Council has lived in peace for so long that we lost the ability to recognize genuine danger. The shuttle doors began to close, but Zorlax had one final observation. Humans are not peaceful because they don't understand war, he said, echoing the growing realization among Council members. They're cautious because they understand it too well. As the shuttle lifted off, Carol received an urgent message on her communication device. The Quilaxian forces had launched a new offensive, targeting systems closer to Earth. Intelligence suggested they were specifically targeting human worlds now, having identified humanity as their primary obstacle. The message from Admiral Kelly was brief but concerning. They know we're the real threat now. Prepare the Council, the real war is just beginning. The massive view screen in Earth Defense Headquarters showed the approaching Quilaxian armada. Over 300 ships moved in perfect formation toward the Sol system. It was the largest enemy fleet seen since the conflict began 2 months ago. Admiral Susan Kelly studied the display, her face calm despite the gravity of the situation. Around her, human officers and representatives from 20 Council species worked at control stations, coordinating the combined defense force. They're making their move against Earth, Susan said. Just as we predicted. Ambassador Carol Wright stood beside her, watching the Quilaxian fleet's progress. Why target Earth specifically? There are richer worlds, more strategic positions. Because they've identified the real threat, Susan replied, It was never about resources or territory. They wanted to test the Council's resolve, and they found it lacking, until they met humans. Zorlax, who had remained on Earth after the delegation's visit, joined them at the command platform. The Council has committed all available ships to Earth's defense. It is insufficient, I fear. Numbers aren't everything in warfare, Susan said. Position, strategy, and will to fight matter more. On the bridge of the Intrepid, now repaired and upgraded, Captain Joe Martinez briefed his crew and the alien, officers assigned to his ship. The Intrepid would lead one of 5 battle groups positioned to intercept the Quilaxian fleet. We'll engage at these coordinates, Martinez said, highlighting a position just beyond Mars orbit. Our goal is to split their formation and disrupt their command structure. A Thalasian officer raised one of her 4 hands. The risk is enormous. Their flagship is heavily armed. All warfare involves risk, Martinez replied. But we've trained for this. Every ship knows its role. The Draconian tactical officer, scales now a determined orange, nodded in agreement. The human combat simulations have prepared us well. We will not fail. As final preparations were made, Carol addressed an emergency session of the Galactic Council via holographic link. Most Council members were evacuated from their homeworld, now scattered across secure locations throughout Council space. The combined fleet is in position, Carol reported. Earth stands ready to defend not just our system, but the principles of the Council itself, peace, cooperation, and the right of all species to exist free from domination. The Arcturian representative, who had been humanity's strongest critic, spoke with newfound respect. We misunderstood humans from the beginning. We saw your military preparation as a sign of aggression, not wisdom. There's still time to debate. Philosophy after we win this battle, Carol said with a small smile. For now we fight together. As the Quilaxian fleet entered the outer Sol system, a surprising message came through on all channels. The Quilaxian commander, a gray-skinned being with rows of sharp teeth, appeared on view screens throughout the combined fleet. Attention humans. Of Earth, I am Supreme Commander Vexgar of the Quilaxian Dominion. We have observed your species with great interest. Unlike the weak Council races, you understand the necessity of strength. We offer you a place in our new empire. Join us, and together we will rule the galaxy. Refuse, and your world will burn. In the command center, all eyes turned to Admiral Kelly. The offer was unexpected. The Quilaxians had never attempted negotiation before. They're trying to divide us, Susan said. They see us as kindred spirits because of our military capability. Carol nodded. How do we respond? Captain Martinez should answer, Susan decided. He's on the front line. The communication was routed to the Intrepid. Martinez listened to the offer, then looked around his bridge at the human and alien crew, working side by side. Some had been skeptical of each other at first, but weeks of training and preparation had forged them into a unified team. This is Captain Joe Martinez of Earth, he responded. The Quilaxians misunderstand humans as badly as the Council once did. We don't fight because we love war. We fight because we love peace enough to defend it. He paused, then delivered the human answer. We stand with our friends, that's your only warning, withdraw now. The Quilaxian commander's face contorted with rage. The transmission cut off abruptly. All ships battle positions, Martinez ordered. They'll attack immediately. The battle for Earth began in the cold space beyond Mars. The Quilaxian ships advanced in tight formation, their weapons already firing at extreme range. The combined fleet held position, following the strategy developed by human military planners and refined by Council tacticians. On Earth, civilians watched the battle through public view screens. Many had refused evacuation, choosing to remain and support the defense effort. In the command center, Susan directed the overall strategy, while specialized teams handled different aspects of the complex battle. They're targeting our command ships, reported a sensor officer. Just as we expected, Susan nodded. Spring the trap. What appeared to be key command vessels suddenly changed course, revealing themselves as decoys. The real command structure, distributed among smaller, faster ships, remained intact while the Quilaxians wasted firepower on empty targets. The battle raged for hours. Council ships, once ceremonial peacekeepers, now fought with determination alongside human vessels. When a group of Quilaxian destroyers broke through toward Earth, the Intrepid led a counterattack that placed it directly in the path of enemy fire. A Thalasian colony ship, filled with civilians, found itself targeted by Quilaxian weapons. Without hesitation, 3 human vessels moved to shield it, taking heavy damage in the process. The Council representatives in the command center watched in amazement. They protect others at cost to themselves, Zorlax observed. Even non-humans. That's what we've been trying to tell you, Carol said quietly. Humans fight hardest not for conquest or glory, but for protection. The tide turned when a joint human Valkyrie strike team, secretly prepared by Vexakar, the Valkyrie observer, disabled the Quilaxian flagship. As systems failed across their fleet, the remaining Quilaxian vessels began a disorganized retreat. In the aftermath, as damage reports came in and rescue operations began, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Earth, once classified as a developing non-aggressive species, was formally recognized as a full council member with all privileges. The galaxy has witnessed what humans truly are, Zorlax announced in the ceremony. Not warmongers as we feared, but protectors, as they claimed. Carol accepted the new status with appropriate diplomatic words, but it was Admiral Kelly who captured the essence of humanity's position. We pray for peace, she told the assembled delegates, but prepare for war. Not because we want it, but because we understand it. The galaxy is vast and largely unknown. The Council's peace is precious precisely because it's rare and fragile. Humans will help defend that peace not despite our history of conflict, but because of it. As reconstruction began across Council space, a new understanding spread among the varied species of the galaxy. Humans weren't peaceful because they had never known war. They weren't warlike because they glorified conflict. The truth was more complex and more profound. Humans feared war precisely because they knew what they were capable of. And that, paradoxically, made them the fiercest defenders of peace the galaxy had ever known.